Welcome to part 2 of the making of Onua vs. Lewa. In the last video, I showed you how to make a miniature forest. In this video, I'll show you how to make a CGI one. Oh, and also how to make your own music. But first, I just want to get one thing out of the way. No Krana were harmed in the making of this animation. It was all just movie magic. With that cleared up, let's talk about the CGI Forest in the opening shot. I wanted to place the characters in a larger environment than just my basement, so I took this as an opportunity to make a landscape in Blender, which is a free 3D software. First, I filmed the stop motion on a blue screen. Then I took this footage into Blender and used 3D camera tracking to create a virtual camera that moves in the same way. Then using Blender's terrain generator, I blocked out how I wanted the scene to look, taking some inspiration from artwork and real photos of volcanoes. Now, using cutouts of leaves from the opening shot, I just followed a tutorial from CG Geek to make the CGI Forest. This is actually an easier process than you might think. You just make one tree, and then duplicate it a few thousand times, and bam, there's a forest. And the volcano is just a simple volcano shape with details and texture added on from a real mountain. Putting it all together, we get our forest, but it's missing something: atmospheric perspective. In real life, things that are farther away take on the color of the sky because of the atmosphere. So the quick and dirty way to mimic this effect is to just add the sky color more and more as objects in your scene are farther away. Lastly, I filmed some more real leaves and added those in to better bridge the gap between the stop motion and the CGI footage. It took a long time tweaking the color and the motion of these real and CGI elements, but in the end, I think it all came together. I also used Blender for Lewa's attacks. Once again, I did 3D motion tracking on the shot, and then I made a smoke simulation in Blender. There are plenty of tutorials on how to do this. The hard part is really just fiddling around with the parameters until you get the smoke to go in the direction that you want it to. I also threw in a couple of smoke simulations for the tidal wave. In addition to these effects which I did in Blender, there was also a lot to do in After Effects with rotoscoping and blue screen. Remember when I said it was a pain to blue screen the leaves? Here's why. A lot of the time, the characters were in focus, but the leaves were out of focus. This means you can't blue screen both at the same time, because the leaves need a key with a soft edge, but the character needs a key with a hard edge. So for tons of shots, I had to rotoscope out the character, just to separate them out from the background. Honestly, it would have been a lot easier just to use a printed backdrop. A good example is this animation by Rasch, who is definitely worth checking out. Fortunately, some of the other green screen shots were a little bit easier. Another challenge of having leaves in the scene is that they would sometimes move around while I was filming. So sometimes I had to fix that just by freeze framing certain areas of the screen. Then there's the standard rig removal. For every frame, I took one photo with the rocks and their supports, and one without them. That way, you can just combine the photos and erase all of the supports afterwards. Also, I had to use After Effects to make Lewa's eyes turn red, and also to recolor some blue pins and turn them into black ones. Alright, I think you get the point. Let's talk about something a little more interesting: the music. To avoid YouTube's highly advanced copyright detection system, it's a good idea to use royalty-free music from sources such as YouTube's audio library or, for example, Kevin MacLeod. But for this animation, I thought I'd have some fun with it and learn how to make my own music. It turns out you can do it all for free, so I hope these tips will be helpful and that you can give it a try too. Alright, so a good starting point is to get some instruments. I really like the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover, which has all of the instruments in a full orchestra and is totally free. To turn these instruments into music, I used LMMS, although since then I've gotten recommendations for some other programs. In any case, you basically just select the instrument and then put down some notes. A good starting point is to try and make your own version of music that you like, or by checking out some of the many tutorials out there. So for example, here's a breakdown of the instruments that went into an action theme for the video. Here's the whole theme all together, and then now all the individual instruments. The most fun part about making music for your video is that the music can really communicate the emotions of the characters. So for example, you can communicate a sense of dread, relief, and at the end, a sense of triumph. I also want to give a shout out to Palie Studios. He does a great job of making music that is perfectly timed with his animation, and really helps tell the story. Seriously, why doesn't this guy have more views? With all that said, using existing music is perfectly fine too. 166 Eric found perfect music for his animation, but again, just be careful about copyright. The YouTube audio library is definitely your best friend here. Well, I think that about covers everything. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or if you like these behind the scenes videos. If you do, then I'll keep making them in the future. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you for my next animation.